Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us on today's webinar, Developing Your Security Foundation, a guide for nonprofits during the pandemic and beyond. I'm Nicole Jones from TechSoup. I'll be your host, and we'll introduce our guest speaker in just a moment here. But before we do that, let us know over in chat where you're tuning in from. And we'll get started in just a bit with today's main content as we allow some more folks to join us. We've got Kevin from Seattle. We have Annie from St. Louis. Hello. We have Sandra from Boise, Idaho. Sandra, or let's see who else. Yeah, Sandra from North Carolina and Cassandra from Idaho. Hi, Erica from Baltimore. We are well represented in all regions. Who else do we have here? We've got Sheila from Kansas, Patty from Joshua Tree. Excellent. It's so great to see so many of you here with us today, and I know some more people will be joining us in just a moment, but why don't we go ahead and skip on over to housekeeping and talk about how you can engage in today's webinar. So you might have noticed we're using Zoom and your line is muted, but you can ask questions at any time by typing them into your Q&A panel. That's preferred choice to add your questions. We'll also be monitoring chat, but if you have any questions, the Q&A bubble with the two little bubbles is the best place to ask them. You'll also share comments in audience chat, and we'll read out some of those toward the end of the webinar. And if you happen to need to step out at any point today, no worries. We are going to send a recording of this webinar to everyone who registered. We're also going to share the slides and any resource links, so you don't have to worry about missing a thing. All right, and then if we hop on over to our next slide here, we're going to talk a little bit about TechSoup. And if this is your first time joining TechSoup and joining a TechSoup event, welcome. So TechSoup equips changemakers with transformative technology solutions and skills that they need to improve lives globally and locally. We do a lot more than offer discounts on the tools that you need. We also provide support, training, community, and more to help over 1 million nonprofits in more than 200 countries and territories around the world. And on our next slide, we'll see some of the support that makes this possible from our generous donor partners. And they help us to build a technology product philanthropy program that truly serves nonprofits, libraries, and foundations across the country and around the world. And we're so pleased to have one of them here with us today. Our speakers from the Dell team are going to give a little bit more info in just a bit on today's content. So you're going to get to learn more about Dell's offerings and also other great offerings from our partners by visiting our nonprofit tech marketplace at techsoup.org/get-product-donations. I'm going to go ahead and include that in chat. And again, if you miss any of these links, no worries. Just know that we will be including all these links in we'll be including them in the post-event email, and I'll include that in chat in just a sec here. There we go. Excellent. All right, so let's move on to our presenter and to introduce who we have with us today. So once again, I'm Nicole Jones at TechSoup, and our presenter today is Matthew Papendorf. Matthew has been the North America OEM brand manager for Dell Security for the past 5 years. Partnering with the internal product management teams, he's established a winning track record for improving knowledge and sales of endpoint security at Dell. Welcome, Matthew. Thanks so much for being here with us today, and I'll let you take it away.
Thank you so much, Nicole. I appreciate the kind introduction. And if my count is correct, we have about 109 folks on the call today. So welcome from all across the states or more. And happy to be speaking today. So why don't we go ahead and get into the content. So as I was queued up, we're going to be talking about developing a security foundation specifically around nonprofits. Obviously, this is not the most ideal time for a lot of us. However, a lot of us are still relying on technology and internet connection communication to not only keep in touch with one another, but to also do business. So I wanted to kind of take a look at how we at Dell are managing security, and then give all of you with your nonprofits, small businesses, any kind of shop you may be running, on how to best have a a security foundation in place. If you don't have one already, where to start, and if you have one, some great talking points to potentially build up on that. So again, I'm going to be bouncing around between terms, but a lot of this content is relevant from all types of small businesses to medium businesses to nonprofits. There's a lot of good content for everybody. So to walk through a lot of these talking points, I'll kind of give you guys a touch point on where we stand with our landscape around security and where that is today. Obviously, COVID-19, as I mentioned going in, has changed the way we digest online media and internet connectivity. So we will talk about how security plays into that, why security matters for your business, and then also where to start for some of your security measures. And then, of course, I've done this before. I anticipate a ton of Q&A. So if you have questions at any point, I mean, throw them into the chat, as Nicole has suggested, and I will happily address those as well. And then near the end, I'm going to introduce one of my counterparts, Sydney Duckworth, who works for our strategic partnership team. She has some content as well before we pass it back to Nicole. So let's go ahead and get started on our trends. So long and short, our security team here at Dell, we've been monitoring not just computer activity of our customers and purchasing habits, but also our own usage as well internally. And as we're starting to kind of measure all of these pieces here in this environment, no surprise, 2018, 2019, then of course at the end of this year, we will do an aggregate amount of data to showcase the stats there. But we are seeing a tremendous rise in digital activity, and that is not just computer usage, but also our tablet and mobile device usage. So no surprise, we're more connected than we used to be year after year, and that's growing exponentially. But with that comes a price. And talking to that third point here, as consumers or donators or however our audience may be using this data, it does open us up to be more susceptible to online threats. And they can be anywhere from actual viruses on your devices to actual scraping information from the websites that you are attending to, or if you're entering credit card information for donations or purchasing something online, if you are using a risky Wi-Fi connection, any way that you interact on the web, and you do not have a proper security measure in place, you are putting yourself or your customers' data or your customer information at risk. And that is something that we're going to go deep dive in. But as we use the internet more and more, we put ourselves more in danger for not having a strong security foundation. And then, of course, a big one that we want to really start focusing on, and not just here at Dell, but I think all of us as a whole, we need to be mindful of our personal data. What we're starting to see these days with Dell is people, and I have a slide for it actually, is individuals are starting to be much more skeptical, of entering their personal information on sites, whether it be a donation or a credit card purchase, as I mentioned, because more and more unsecure sites and mobile connection purchasing, things of that nature, they're starting to realize that their personal data is starting to become more compromised than it used to because of our digital lives being much more hazardous around these areas. So I'm going to scare you all a little bit here and talk about some of the security threats we have going on. So our antivirus labs at Dell, we're starting to realize that we're getting, I'm just going to round up, about 400 security threats per minute. And that was in Q1. And obviously that has grown from Q2. We're in Q3 here at Dell. We're running the Q2 numbers, but we are anticipating that that number not only is going to grow, but that is a large number of threats that happen that we measure. Malware, which you may hear me use in these presentations, it's malicious software. It's just a combination of those two words, but it's a catch-all for a lot of the threats out there. We're starting to see malware being written year over year and a continued growth there. But really want to highlight, I think the talking points at the bottom is mobile malware. And I'm going to probably reference my phone a couple times and maybe throw it up in the screen. But a lot of us, if not all of us, are attached to our phone for pretty much every moment of the day, whether we're doing social media or even business at this point. A lot of our small business customers here at Dell utilize mobile devices to do a lot of their transactions. But that being said, our mobile devices are being utilized similarly to what we use on our laptops or our home PCs. And with that being said, us as a population, we need to start considering our mobile devices and tablets to be just as powerful and just as connected as our computers. And most folks, and again, I'm talking in large, broad brush strokes here, but most folks don't treat their mobile devices as they do a PC. So using this example in play, what we're starting to realize is that we may have an antivirus or an endpoint security solution or a good lockdown security threat protection on our PC, but we don't have it on our phone. But yet we are doing the exact same actions on our mobile device as we are on our PCs. And that being said, is if I'm accessing Salesforce or work emails or transferring information between a customer and my work PC, but I'm using my mobile device and I don't have security on it, I am basically exposing my work or my business to a threat because I'm not practicing good security on my mobile device. And I mean, that's a long-winded example, but truth be told, what we need to start doing is understanding that our mobile devices need the same level of security as our PCs. And then, of course, we're also seeing, last point there, Bitcoin going up. I know a lot of folks are starting to use cryptocurrency to manage their transactions and their finances. I will raise my hand and say I am functionally not cool enough to understand how Bitcoin works, but I do understand it is starting to become a mainstay here as far as financial transactions goes. And hackers are getting very smart in being able to figure out how to hack those cryptocurrency transactions as well. So let me transition to the big 6 there on the screen. Kind of an alarming number there, but in truth, on average, every second, there are 6 new viruses or computer viruses being created. And I do get this question in training here at Dell all the time is, how do we understand what's new, what's not? And I would always lean on this perfect example, and I say perfect because I didn't create it, but it's an excellent way of saying it. Treat a computer virus as you would with a flu virus. Every year it mutates, and some of the I guess polypeptides and however the chemical reaction is built, they will move around and it'll change the severity of the virus, but it is still technically a flu virus, but it is considered a new strand. Same thing with a computer virus code. It's zeros and ones, and smart hackers are able to just move those around in different order. And in doing so, try and trick our computers and our endpoint security in not reading the code or bypassing it and allowing the threat to go through. Every time that they move the zeros and ones around into a different order, technically, it is being registered as a new virus. So that is how we tabulate that. A little fun fact for you guys is there. But even still, we need to be mindful and have security in place because hackers are getting smart and they're constantly moving that code around. They're trying to crack into our system. All right. A little bit more here. We'll talk about some of the trends that are going on, and I apologize for some of the small language there on the side, talking about the 5 largest computer and PC web using countries. But this is really around what we're starting to see with our customers and how they're perceiving things. So first and foremost, in the top half, we took a poll of a lot of our customers and our data users, and what they're starting to see is personal data or financial data they're at most fearful of, and then fraudulent passwords and access to the data. And that is things around like maybe your Google a Google Drive, or your even just using your Gmail page, it'll save passwords, or your banking page or what have you, or even Salesforce if it keeps your password built into a lot of these browsers. That is 40% of our, rounding up there, 40% of our customer base is afraid that by having passwords saved into a lot of these websites and web pages could accidentally lead into threats being invited. And that could just be simply, if I have all of my passwords saved into my mobile device or my PC, and it gets stolen and they log on and they just go to these sites, which a lot of them do, banking information, Chase, Wells Fargo, what have you. If I have those passwords saved in, an individual can just log into my account without having to think twice. Also, if I'm accessing these, and this talks specifically to the second point, if I am accessing those browser windows or those programs on a Wi-Fi network that is not protected, and when I mean protected, I don't mean the Starbucks Wi-Fi because there's just a password that you need to get in. A lot of people are lulled into a false sense of security that just because the password is coffee. One can log into that Wi-Fi network. That doesn't mean it's protected and safe. So that being said, I'll talk a little bit more in a deeper context, but we're starting to realize that as people are using these Wi-Fis, they're starting to realize that interacting on these networks may not be the best way to do business. I know a lot of people have done this in the past. And that being said, is there's a lot of risky behavior and there's a lot of fear, as you can see with the statistics, of people utilizing those networks and doing business. And all in all, I think what it comes down to here, moving to the next slide, is where it stands with people now in our COVID crisis and how our lives have changed around our digestion of online media and where we are for social media. So, no surprise, we've seen a lot of people work from home. And so we saw a lot of our customers shift to needing an antivirus or an endpoint security on their PCs at home, whether it be an Apple or a Dell computer or another one of our competitors. Regardless, we're seeing a huge push for endpoint antivirus security. So purchasing patterns around that has peaked. VPNs, virtual private network, personal network, I've heard it called many things. I'll reference this a couple times, but essentially a VPN is whereas an antivirus solution will protect the physical device from a threat interacting with it, VPN will protect the connection. So here at Dell, we use a pretty robust VPN solution that will allow us to access the Dell servers and actually complete work. And we are not allowed to do that remotely unless we use this protected funnel, I guess you could say, of connection. So we've seen a lot of remote employees from various companies and nonprofits start to utilize a VPN so they can access those Google Drives, they can access those documents needed from the office and have the file transfer in between be secure. As I mentioned, work from home. We're seeing a lot more folks these days. I would imagine everybody on this call, including us presenting, are from our homes, and that is starting to become a standard. And home security isn't always built to be the same as office security. So that being said, also laptop purchases going in, we're starting, because the security reference is sliding over, we're seeing a lot of our customers starting to purchase mobile workstations because of that as well. So all of these kind of coming together, what we're really starting to look like as far as a unit or a group of individuals that are digesting media, it's much more mobile, it's much more secure, and that is mostly because we are away from our offices, so we need to be more security minded because of that. Transitioning over to how COVID has changed the internet itself. So again, it might be a little hard to see on your screen, but the circle chart there, the three, and I'll just reference the three big ones right there: healthcare, banking, and education. Just for your points, and I'll bring those up. What we're starting to see here is because of COVID-19, no surprises I've mentioned before, internet usage has really jumped up as far as what we were doing so in the past, specifically with home internet usage. And cybercriminals are really smart, and they're actually seeing this pattern of behavior shift. So what we here at Dell have started to realize is malicious URLs are really starting to take hold as far as one of the biggest security threats on the market right now. And this is referencing the chart to the right. I'm a concerned father, or I have a loved one or a partner that is sick. So what I will do is I will go online and I will start looking for medical advice around maybe sore throats or whatever, thinking that they might, is it the flu? Is it COVID related? What are the symptoms? What have you? So what so going to the second bullet point, what hackers are starting to do is they're starting to cookie and put viruses on a lot of those sites that are healthcare related, because they know people are fearful for their well-being. So they are using those health sites to trigger those viruses. And if we're not careful, again, being secure with our usage, those tend to be one of the bigger locations for cookies and viruses. Of course, with education and banking, we have students going back to school, whether they be collegiate or primary or secondary or high school education, whatever. We have a lot of folks working from home, so there are a lot of educational tools and downloads and apps that are needed. And because of that big push for educational software and sites, hackers are starting to get into there as well. And then, of course, banking is always going to be there as number two is a big one. uh, Stimulus checks or donations that may come through. People like to give in times of need, and there's a lot of sites or programs that individuals may utilize to make those donations or to transfer some of those financial givings. And those sites, if not protected, or customers who aren't utilizing security on a mobile connection and they aren't being right about it, there's plenty of room for their financial data to be scraped and utilized against them. And then the last talking point there, this is just a fun word that I had to learn in all of this, is Zoom bombing. Now, we're using a secure connection, so we don't have to worry about this one today. But if I am a small business or a small startup of any kind, or even a nonprofit, and we are performing business over a Zoom call, and neither of our working counterparts are utilizing a secure connection, hackers can actually hack into those Zoom calls and listen in anonymously. And if we are sharing financials or specific data around maybe trade secrets or credit card numbers, anything like that, it's a perfect way for an individual who is just sitting in and grabbing all that data. And here we are thinking we're having just a normal business meeting, but what we're actually doing is verbally giving away content to somebody who may be sitting in on that call that we're not aware of. So long and short, cyber criminals and hackers are starting to get really creative and finding ways based off of our patterns and how we're utilizing media. So I think that is a perfect segue into why security matters for you and your organization. If I haven't scared you enough, some of these stats I really want to kind of point out to the folks. And we train this to all of our Dell folks, our small business teams, our consumer teams, our enterprise teams. They need to understand what security, the matter of security, and why it's important to organizations. So, quick 1, 2, 3. Nonprofits, startups, smaller businesses, a lot of them do not have the same level or infrastructure as larger businesses do. Server rooms, dedicated IT personnel, standardization as far as security and all of the workforce systems. Because of that, hackers and cyber criminals know that small businesses and the like are much easier to target. So we see, and a lot of these numbers come from Dell internal as well as Visa, our credit card information down there, number 3. Majority of small businesses are just not equipped to stave off hackers. So they're usually majority the prey because of that. Internal access. This is a big one as well. Employees of smaller companies or organizations, nonprofits, they may not get the same level of security etiquette and personal training needed to protect the devices that have company information on them. Here at Dell, we have to go through etiquette training and understanding how to lock our systems, how to log into our mobile workstations, things of that nature, and a whole protocol around sharing information between customers ourselves. That being said, a small business may not have that. It could be 10 people who are working remotely and they're, using personal email to send work files. And if, again, all security measures are not taken in place, there could be sending vital information with financials to folks who may not, they want it to be sent to. So it's an easy way for hackers to jump back in and utilize individuals who may not be trained to handle security appropriately with their company information. And then third point, I kind of mentioned this a little bit earlier on, nonprofit, startups, small businesses, you guys still have, although maybe smaller in number, it's still personal ID information. It is still financials if they're doing donations. It is still, relevant to a hacker. All they need is one number or one credit card information, name, or all of that, and it is still considered a threat, even at a smaller scale. So Visa, as I mentioned, they see the majority of their credit card breaches happen from their smallest customers because, again, it is easiest for the hacker to get in. So what I want to talk about there is the biggest talking point at the bottom. And among all of these audiences of small businesses, startups, and nonprofits, those that suffer a breach, they go out of business. The majority of them go out of business after 6 months. And what I mean by that is it's not because of there's a cost element, but there's a reputation element. So utilizing a small business or a nonprofit in this example, um, if I believe the numbers right now are it costs about $300 or thereabouts of a company to pay for a customer, we'll just call them a customer, to get their personal identification cleaned up and back to them if it has been breached and hacked. Now, if I am a startup or a nonprofit and I have 100 donors in my pool and I have a breach and all 100 of them have had their information, stolen. If I'm lucky enough to have money in the bank to pay that $300 per donor fee, that's a lot of money. If I'm lucky enough to have insurance to cover that breach and pay for all of those out-of-pocket expenses, that's great. But a lot may not have that financial backing behind it to take care of it. But even if you do get out of that, what usually kills the businesses in this time frame is the reviews and the reputation. So whether it be a small business or a startup in this example, nobody wants to do business or to donate to a company that can't protect the donors or the customers if they're going to be sharing their information. In the case of small businesses, if I have a customer base, I'm like a roofer in town, and I have great Yelp reviews, and then I have a breach and it affects my entire customer base, nobody's going to do business with a roofer that can't keep their customers safe. Same thing with a nonprofit. No one wants to donate to an organization that cannot, keep the credit cards and donations of their audience safe. So that being said, a lot of them go out of business because of this. Transition to a little bit of consumer mindset as well. This talks about currently what's going on in the industry as well. And what we're starting to see is, and you can see the 90% all the way down to 86%, the kind of that middle portion right there. Working from home, having our consumers and our customers adapt to this new environment, we're starting to see them become much more skeptical over almost a half year to a year period of a lot of the things that they do. Stimulus checks fraud, charity and fundraising fraud, which I know is directly related to this audience on this call, work from home breaches, business email compromising. Excuse me. What has happened is because we have our consumers and our customers that are no longer doing this in a work secure environment. They're doing it in a work from home environment. And because of that, the at-home environment is not always secure. So when they are asked to interact or to give or to purchase, they're much more skeptical around how they interact, and also just the times as of right now with there being a lot of hacks, we're starting to deal with a much more skeptical audience of donors and customers out there. All right, I kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, but I want to threats go beyond system malware. And again, that's me talking about our threats on our functional PC. We have about 40% of the world who's starting to use public Wi-Fi. And at the end of this year, we're starting to realize that hotspots and usage is going to be continually on the rise as we become a much more mobile technology culture. And compared to where we were, years ago, and even just talk about 5 years ago, and at that point, phones and technology today versus 5 years ago has continually, or I should say, exponentially grown in functionality, and we're having increasing concern about security around that as well. So to talk to this slide, I always use a real life example that I bring to the table. So I used to travel. Obviously, no one's traveling too much these days, but I used to travel between Dell offices to do trainings. I'm located in Austin, and I would go to Nashville, Tennessee quite a bit. And I am notorious for not being smart and planning ahead. And what I would do is I would have my boarding pass on my phone for my flight. So I'd get off on a layover, and I have 20 minutes to make my flight, and I'm quickly in, Dallas airport or what have you, and I pull up on my phone. I go to the airport Wi-Fi connection. I log in. I go to my Dell accounts, my work email. I pull up my my boarding pass and my Southwest account, take a screenshot, go in, enter my passwords. 20 minutes, great. I'm doing this all while I'm running because I have nimble thumbs, and I'm able to make it and pull up my boarding pass and get to my next flight safely. But what I just did in that interaction, that 20 minutes of running from gate to gate, is I'm accessing a Wi-Fi network from the airport that is not secure. I'm pulling up my work email on my mobile device that does not have antivirus protection or a malware protection on it. I'm accessing, like I said, work and personal data, and there's credit card information, passwords that I've just shared. And yes, I am on the flight to Nashville from Dallas, and I made it. Phew, nick of time. But what I basically did is give anybody who is on that network in the airport and just watching activity a clean opportunity to get into my personal and my work data. And that is something that I think a lot of folks do not think of and take for they take it for granted that just because there's a password to get into Wi-Fi, that it's going to be secure. So that probably scared all of you, and that's a real example that I have to deal with all the time. But that is why I really want a lot of our customers, and I really push our small business and nonprofit and enterprise solutions customers to think of VPN and mobile protection. And what we're starting to realize, obviously, is we have most of our employees, if not all of them, working remote at least one day a week. Here at Dell, we're starting to transition everybody to be a more mobile workforce. So a lot of folks will be working from home, but not everybody utilizes a VPN. And it's great when you have an antivirus solution endpoint on your PC. But if we're using mobile devices, if we have for example, food trucks, where they utilize the little square and the credit card thing on their tablet or their phone. They're connected to a network. They have to, run a credit card through that. And granted, there's a lot of programs that can kind of help with security on that, but there's a connection there where there's going to be a transfer of content, transfer of personal data, credit card numbers, what have you. Even with donations on the street, if you are working a fundraiser and you're, taking donations mobily, and I'm susceptible to this all the time, Girl Scouts and Girl Scout cookies. And I always say, I don't have cash, but then they come and say, well, we could swipe it on the phone. And I go, okay, I'll take 9 boxes. And then they get my card. They're getting smart. Point being is those connections if they're not connected, I'm basically giving my information away. Our customers are as well. So I recommend everybody getting, and you can find them on the market. I know Dell sells a lot of them. There's a lot of third-party options available out there. It is a terrific layer of security to connect to endpoints and being secure through all transactions. And what it essentially does is it'll mask all interactions that take place on that. I'm trying to paraphrase. There's a lot more technical information on that, but basically, if on my mobile device I turn it on, whatever I do from point to point, it will be masked on my IP, and anybody who's watching that mobile connection will not be able to see my activity or content that is shared. So basically, it just hides it. And so, long, short, really great tool. We use it here at Dell. I highly recommend folks who have a mobile work force to think of this as a great additional layer of security. And I think this brings me to where we can layer our online security and organizational security measures. So I know I just kind of ranted a little bit about VPN, but first and foremost, if you really want to protect your employees and your small business and your nonprofit organizations with 3 easy steps, and they're all labeled 1, but they should be 1, 2, 3. That's fine. They're all important. I would get a reliable VPN to connect your employees to make sure that they're utilizing it so that there is from endpoint to endpoint a clean transfer regardless of the Wi-Fi network that they're using. It will require a password and a connection, and any transactions or donations that happen in between the two will be masked and protected. Use a proven antivirus program that is actually going to be the solution on your PC. Apple's as well, that will protect the device itself, that if a threat happened to come in and corrupt a hard drive or corrupt password or any of your browser content, having that antivirus solution actually on the device will protect from any further damage going on. And then the third one, or number 1, as I joked already, practice good security behavior. Whether you have 5 employees or 100 employees, make sure that you speak to them, or there are organizations that will do this for you. There are YouTube and online classes to teach good security behavior to your customers. There's plenty of information taken out there to teach good security behaviors to your employees. And with those three measures in place, good security etiquette, an antivirus protection on your system, and then any transfer in between with mobile connections, you're basically putting in place a terrific a net to protect yourselves and your customers from any goings on that may be a security threat to your company. So I know we have some Q&A coming, but before we do, I'm going to go ahead, as I mentioned, pass it over to my counterpart, Sydney Duckworth from the Strategic Partnership Team. She has a little information for you before we move to the Q&A section.
Hi guys, just wanted to go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Sydney Duckworth. I'm your strategic partnership account executive over here for TechSoup. That means that if you ever have any questions for Dell, if you're looking at purchasing, anything like that, I'm going to be the liaison and make sure you're getting in touch with a sales rep and also getting your member discounting that you will apply for on the TechSoup website. If you have a membership and you are a nonprofit, it'll usually be my contact information. So please feel free to reach out to me. You guys usually get 5 to 10% off of all Dell branded equipment. So wanted to go over that. We also have different services with our Dell financial services, as well as our different specials for warranties and services over here at Dell. Please feel free to reach out to me directly and I can get you in touch with a sales rep to make sure you're getting that discounting. And we also have different details that if you'd prefer to just do it your own purchasing online, you'll be able to get that specific discount code through TechSoup. So I look forward to working with you guys. And if you ever have any questions, let me know. Besides that, have a great rest of your day. And thank you so much for attending.
Thank you, Sydney. All right.
Excellent.
I,
Great.
I saw the corner of my eye, the Q&A bar is lighting up. So I'm guessing we have quite a few, Nicole, huh?
We do. We've got some really good questions.
Excellent.
And yeah, Matthew, you covered a lot of great content here, a lot of questions, really spanning the gamut here. So let's go ahead and dive in. But before we do, just want to mention that I included the details about the Dell offer via TechSoup in the chat. So you can find that link in your chat. And we'll also be including that in the post webinar email. So yes, let's move on to Q&A. So go ahead, find your Q&A button on your Zoom menu if you haven't already. That is the place you want to add your questions, and you'll notice that you can also upvote for any questions that you also have on your mind, or that is one that you'd like to see answered. So go ahead, head on over, ask your questions, and go ahead and upvote the ones that you'd like to see answered. So let's start with this first question here from Carmen. Our small office of 10 is 100% remote. How can we provide protection security for our team and data? We used Microsoft 365, SharePoint, OneDrive, and Google Docs. So I think a really nice encompassing question
Yes.
around the content you covered today. So a little
Yeah.
recap there.
I maybe covering some of the things. A great question, Carmen. Thank you. If you have a 10 employee and they are utilizing those programs, I think you said Microsoft 365 and Google Docs as well through Google Drive. Before I came to Dell, we were me and a few others. We had an online search engine marketing agency, and it was a startup, and that's kind of where I cut my teeth before I moved over here. And we utilized a small business machine format like that as well. So first and foremost, I make sure I would start, you teach your employee force, all 10 of you, to make sure that when they are connecting to all of these Google Drives or these shareable Microsoft tools, things of that nature, that they're only sharing it from the work-related emails and not from personal emails. One of the biggest threats out there to smallest businesses is a lot of times you will have an employee handling work-related business on a personal email address or a personal PC or something that's not work related. And because of that, that is an easy threat you guys can eliminate right off the bat, is just keep work at work and make sure your employees are logging in and keeping that secure. And then I do also know that a lot of these drives and tools, they require a password protection. I don't know the functionality specifically, but I do know that you as a nonprofit owner or a company owner, you can put a password functionality in place and make them log in with that, if not all already in place. And in doing so, just adding these layers of security teaches them to be more secure. And then just make sure that if they are, again, doing work-related business, they're doing so on the work devices, that'll help keep everything contained. So you're not opening it up to looky-loos getting in on your content. So hopefully I answer that question, or that's a great start at least.
Yes, yes. Sound advice. Thank you, Matthew. Let's move
Of
on to
course.
this next question. It's from Chris, and he asks, what options are there for mobile device security? And actually, we've got a lot of questions around
Mhm.
mobile device security. Another one around VPNs for mobile devices. So maybe if you can provide some more info on that, that would be appreciated.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So I share a whole bunch of content in this slide in these slides again around, hey, we're moving towards this mobile-minded thing. Antivirus programmers and antivirus solutions aren't dumb. They they notate that, and they build their programs to be mobile-minded. So here at Dell, we've had a partnership with McAfee specifically. That's what we use on our systems. That's what we sell as one of our solutions to our customers. They already have into their antivirus solution mobile protection built in. There's links and connections, and you just utilize. And I'm speaking to this one because that's what we use at Dell, but there are many on the market. What you do is you just connect it, and what you have on your PC, it will transfer over through an email or a text, and you just download it and use it on your mobile device or your tablet. So that being said, it's seamless. I know McAfee has one, and they have a VPN built into a lot of their systems as well. I think Norton does. They're another one in the market that's big on that and also has a mobile device protection functionality. I think Trend Micro, Malwarebytes, maybe another. So I think long and short, if you utilize some of the top performing antivirus solutions on the market, most of them will have a mobile device component to it. If they don't, I would say keep searching, because the more reputable ones available on the market are the ones that understand a more holistic device security solution. And that being said, searching in that market or purchasing a program in that market, you're probably going to have your best bets of utilizing one that's a great solution.
Great. Thanks for that.
Mhm.
And keep your questions coming. Head on over to the Q&A feature of the Zoom panel here. You'll see two little Q&A bubbles. That is where you want to drop your questions. And you'll also see other questions that attendees have added, and you can upvote your favorite ones there. And a reminder that we will also be sending out a recording of this webinar in addition to the slides, so you can go back and revisit anything that you might have missed. All right, so let's dive into some more questions. We've got some really good ones here. Here's a question from Carol. Carol asks, how can I and another employee working from our homes work on a document together securely?
Mm. We do that here at Dell constantly. One of the ways to do that, and I know through Microsoft Teams as well as through Google Docs, there can be a mutual share or a mutual edit functionality. If you are working remotely at home, first and foremost, I hope everybody in the call, and I don't mean to insult anybody who doesn't do this, but please put a password on your at-home Wi-Fi connection, and make it a good one, not like your dog's name and birthday, but something with a little bit of meat to that password, and then just don't broadcast it to the neighborhood. That being said, having that password protection, I think on a Wi-Fi network is a great first step. And I'm going to build to your work-related question there. I would also want to purchase a VPN solution, and again, if you don't have that already, again, I made a point with the previous question, I believe was Chris, if I'm trying to remember names here, about getting an antivirus solution with a VPN built into it. If you and your employee are connected to one another on the Wi-Fi utilizing a VPN solution, which from endpoint to endpoint will protect the transfer, whatever you are doing on that drive or that dock or what have you, if both of you are using password protection to get to it, whatever you guys are sharing back and forth will also be protected as well. So long and short, the more layers of security you have, the better protected you will be. And then if you want to go crazy, why not add to get access to that doc, add a password to that as well. So individuals who may want to go in and look at that content, they have to sign in, and you as the owner of the document will be aware of who has access to it and how they can get in. And that's another layer of security as well.
Great. Thanks for that. Let's move to this question here from Sam. Sam asks, if we use a third party such as PayPal to process credit cards, are we still vulnerable?
Uh, Yes and no, because I think PayPal is, I know there's a lot of nonprofit organizations that take donations through PayPal, and that in themselves, they will actually, and don't quote me on this because I'm not a PayPal employee, but I know that they will take ownership because they're actually functionally doing the banking transaction of the credit card information, processing that. So that in it itself, I think should be connected and protected through PayPal. However, you as the responsible transactee, we'll call it that, you are also having to connect to a mobile PayPal functional site to run, or the app to actually run that donation or that purchase. And if you, as an individual, are not utilizing a connected and secured Wi-Fi connection, anything that you are doing on that connection, I'm going to keep hitting VPN on the head. That's the new firewall these days. If you have a clear and protected connection, it doesn't matter if you're doing PayPal or Gmail or whatever you are doing on that is going to protect that ultimate end transfer. So PayPal, you should be secure. As long as you're connecting to it in a secure way, you should be fine.
Great. All right, let's move to this question now. So first, they say, I am the only IT person at a small nonprofit, a team of about 20 people, and I've shared lots of examples with our executive director about actions that we should take to protect both of our client and donor personal info, but unfortunately haven't had much success. Do you have any advice for how to approach superiors and organizations who refuse to acknowledge the validity of data security concerns? Wow, great question.
So what I would do, and this is just me, and I'm blue skying right here, and that's an excellent question. I don't know if you are a part of any IT organizations or other webinars or folks that part of a larger organization as a whole, but you would be remiss to acknowledge or find that there have probably been larger companies or individuals who run IT for those larger companies who have had a threat. So what I'm trying to get at is find a way to connect with some individuals in your space or who are part of maybe your organization and ask if they've had a threat, and work with them and see if they could be like maybe a guest speaker for your organization, and really combine kind of efforts and say, hey, I'm, Mr. or Mrs. whomever, and I work for this company and I run IT, and we had a breach, and here is the, XYZ of what affected us. You have a smaller fleet of systems, a smaller employee base. However, you're still doing, you know, hackable actions. So really utilize your network and see if you can connect with somebody that you work with or have worked with through an organization that are willing to speak up, and use a scare tactic, I guess, in a way, and have them speak as a guest speaker and showcase that, like, hey, we all need to take this seriously, regardless of the size of a company and regardless of the types of employees we have. Because I think having a voice is important, but having multiple people share the same message from multiple voices can really hit that message home. So hopefully that's helpful, or a great place to start.
Yes, appreciate that response.
Of
And a
course.
reminder that you still have time to ask your questions. Head on over to the Q&A feature of your Zoom panel. You'll see two little message bubbles, and you can ask your question there. You can also view a list of other questions attendees have asked, and you can upvote your favorite ones. Also, we will be sharing a recording out of today's presentation within a couple business days, so you'll get it to the same email that you registered with this webinar for. And we'll also include some slides, the slides that you saw today, so you can spend a little bit more time with those, and links. We definitely want to make sure you've got all the info right in front of you. It's a lot, and it's an important one. So we want to make sure you really get to cozy up to all this great info that's being shared today. So let's take a couple more questions here. We've still got some time and we have got a lot of good questions here. So let's move to this question. Do you have any suggestions for maintaining HIPAA compliance? Any recommended VPNs or security software designed for protecting HIPAA specifically?
Yes, so we get this question a lot, and I will raise my hand and firstly say that I am law organizations, financial institutions, healthcare organizations. A lot of them have a lot of regulations in place. If you're going to be utilizing any form of, whether it be what we sell at Dell or another partner or buying your own, regardless, if you are considering using some form of security, what I would do is contact their customer service department, because a lot of times they will sell different, subscription lengths and different programs. A lot of them have multiple products that they offer. Case in point, talk to an individual who works for the company and say, hey, I'm thinking about purchasing this product and securing my, organization through these regulations. Does this product or what have you protect with these specifications of regulations? And 9 times out of 10, they have an individual on site or they have information around it to show and suggest what might be appropriate for your business based on what you need. So I know we have with McAfee Norton, a lot of their programs, some of them are HIPAA compliant, some are not, and they're built in different ways. And if I am an untrained purchaser, I may buy the wrong one. So long and short, contact customer service, say you're considering purchasing X, Y, and Z, let them know your need, and they will direct you to the appropriate purchase or solution to make sure that what you are doing is compliant and it will protect you and your customers the right way.
Excellent, excellent. All right, this question, we see it come up quite a bit. Are you able to share some of your recommended password manager services or ways that you like to best store them?
So if I understand the question correctly, how do I come up with, good passwords?
More so, any password managers that you can
Ah,
recommend.
uh, yes, and so I always make sure that I follow, capitalizations, varying numbers in different orders, and come up with the most craziest password that I can think of. And I'm not foolish enough. A lot of people do is they'll put it on a Post-it note right on their computer, so when they log in, they don't have to do that. Commit it to memory. Doesn't eight or 10, little icons shouldn't be too hard, hopefully. But don't keep your password in eyesight if you're working in a location that has people who may see it. So that's first and foremost. But going to the password manager functionality, again, going back to the question around mobile functionality with antivirus solutions, there are a lot of antivirus and malware protection devices right now, solutions that you can buy, Dell, third party, buy them at Target. There's many ways to accrue these. Point being is a lot of them have password managers already built in as a feature set. And what they will do, I know McAfee has one, we have it here at Dell. They will go through a password manager functionality to make sure that whatever you are entering in your browsers or logins or what have you is securing them in a certain way. To even access them requires another level of security. So long and short, if you're considering or if not already have a solution in place, a lot of these password manager functionalities are starting to become standard with antivirus solutions on the market.
Excellent, excellent. So we still have some more time for questions, Matthew.
Sure.
You've been such a trooper. Thank you for sharing all of your insights with us here. Let's move to a couple more questions. So this question comes from Fern. Fern asks, or says first, you haven't mentioned anything about MFA. Is that falling out of favor? And that's multi-factor authentication.
I am not terribly, it's not that I haven't avoided it on purpose. It's just I am not terribly skilled at that. I work at a certain specific segment at Dell, one of our small business customers, and we have a very product specific feature set that we sell to those customers. But unfortunately, I'm not skilled enough to answer that segment, and I don't want to give the wrong answer. So you have a very excellent question. I don't want to take that away, but I just don't want to go over my skis and give wrong information to the 120 or so individuals on this call. So if you'd like, I'm happy to find information around it. My contact information is available. I can help work with you on that, finding the right answer. But as a whole, I may not be skilled at this point. If not, I can put you in touch with somebody who can help you with that as well.
That's
Sorry.
great. Yeah, totally fair. No, all good. Sometimes, yeah, sorry, don't have
You
the
stumped
the
me.
perfect answer is totally fine. We did it. We got through so many questions and have yet to. Um, how about this one here about considering VPN for travel, even though most of our applications are cloud-based. So the question
Mhm.
specifically, should we be considering VPN for travel, even if we've got
Absolutely.
cloud-based applications? Okay.
Yeah. So again, and maybe I'm going to repeat myself to everybody who's hung on this long. Thank you. But it's the VPN it's not so much the access of the cloud, because that is usually password protected, and if you have it saved on your mobile device, accessing, great. It's not where it is; it's the connection to it. And that's what the VPN is protecting against. In a lot of cases, through an unprotected Wi-Fi network, they can scrape and understand, and I say they, the hackers, people who watch networks, and there are people who do this as a job, they will watch for keystrokes, they can see what is accessed, they can see backdoor entry even into cloud storage, or one of the biggest culprits that we find out there for mobile employees of small businesses is Salesforce. They will utilize their mobile device. Hey, they just get home from a meeting, they go to a parking lot of a coffee shop, access Wi-Fi, and they're immediately entering their Salesforce content because it's fresh in their mind. And they're basically putting credit card information, numbers and figures and things like that into the Salesforce document. And if that's not protected or whatever, treat it the same way in this example as like a Google Drive. You got there and what you're putting there is great, but you basically left the front door open so somebody can come in with you. And that's really what the VPN is going to protect against, is it's going to make sure that you're masking that connection. And so whatever you do there is good. It's in your drive. It's great, but you're not letting anybody in there with you.
Excellent. And that just brings us to the end of Q&A. I know there's more questions in there, and I appreciate everyone for sending those out. Matthew, maybe before we move to just a wrap up, and we'll just briefly talk about some other upcoming TechSoup events, any other final words that you want to leave attendees with today? Maybe one thing you really hope they walk away with?
This is, yes, and happy to do so. I know a lot of folks are frozen just because there's a lot of different products on the market. And a lot of times they don't know where to start because it can become daunting. What's the difference between this one, their minute details, maybe they're MFA focused, or maybe they're looking for a specific, regulatory functionality in their device. Long and short of it, if you are confused or frozen on where to start, my biggest recommendation to all of you is lean on your counterparts in the industry and the folks that you work with. If you're a small business or a nonprofit organization, you're thinking about purchasing a solution or security solution, talk to the folks that you work with on what they use. Word of mouth, does it protect you? Does it protect them? How does it work? That is a great place to start because you will earn, I call them brownie points, if your largest customer base is using a solution and they recommend the same solution and you guys are connected the right way, the same way. It's a great place to start, is lean on the experts in the field, lean on your customers and your counterparts. They can also give great recommendations at what works for them. Maybe it's overkill, maybe it's not enough. You will find a solution of choice if you do word of mouth and ask the right questions. Great place to start.
Appreciate those final words, Matthew, and your time today. Again, you shared so much valuable information with us, and it will be available to everyone via email within the next couple business days. That includes the recording and the link to the slides. So, Matthew, again, thank you so much for being here
Happy
with
to be a
us.
part of this.
And we'll just wrap on the next slide here. We've got some information about upcoming TechSoup virtual events. I just included that chat link. So you'll be able to find all of our upcoming events and also our past events. You can view the archive and the transcript of those. So just want to call out specifically one event on November 11th about, it's called TechSoup's Tech Tips Digest, alliteration galore in that one, but it's going to be really fun. We know online conferences sometimes can be boring. There's a lot of ideas, but not enough time to share them all. So with this TechSoup mini conference, we'll have lightning fast talks that distill a normal 1 hour's worth of material into 20 minutes. So you're only getting the good bits. And we'll talk about things like creating more content, tips for crowdfunding, productivity tools for nonprofits, and much more. So I'm going to include that specific link in chat, along with the other TechSoup events that we've got coming up. And we'll just close out on the next slide with a thank you and a link to our survey, which you'll also be redirected to once you X out of the Zoom platform. I've also included the survey link in chat. So please take that. Let us know how we did. That really helps us prepare for future webinars. So once again, Matthew, Sydney, Dell team, we're so grateful for you being here, to seeing you all at another TechSoup event. Until then, stay safe, be well. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.